Okay, so in the previous class, I have discussed some of the features of the generators and their characteristic. We will do more on these lines in this lecture as well. So if you remember in the previous class, we said that if we have three-phase system, as you can see on the left-hand side of this presentation, and these three-phase voltages are applied to the stator winding here, AA dash, BB dash and CC dash. Then due to the mechanical load and its reflection on the primary side, on the stator side there are stator currents which are given by these expressions for these value of voltages. And these currents lead to the development of ampere turns in the coil, and which causes the resultant MMF in the air gap, which is sum of the 3 MMF FA plus FB plus FC. And we have proved in the previous class that if we add these 3 MMF, which are space distributed by a factor of alpha, alpha is the alignment of the coil axis. So along the coil axis, alpha is equal to 0, and hence there is a maximum MMF across of that winding. Similarly for B and for C. Now if we add up these 3, then we will get a revolving field. The revolving field expression is given here. 3 by 2 into Fm is the maximum value of the flux for each winding, and then into sine omega t minus alpha. Now alpha is the position in the air gap or in the space, and alpha varies from 0 to 2 pi. Alpha varies from 0 to 2 pi. So when alpha varies from 0 to 2 pi, the sine wave travels from one position to the another. So you can see it here, when alpha is 0, then 30, 60, 90 and so on, then the wave travels from this position to this position. That's why we call it revolving field. It revolves in the air gap of the induction machine. It's basically equivalent to a physical magnet if it is placed inside the rotor and it is rotated at certain speed. The speed is called the synchronous speed. So this synchronous speed is defined as ns, and it is product of 120 F by P. Actually it is in RPM. The fundamental expression is F by P by 2 in RPS. So the frequency of the supply divided by pair of poles. P is total number of poles. So pair of poles, if you divide by pair of poles, that makes the mechanical speed. So electrical speed divided by pair of poles becomes the mechanical speed. Now the slip is responsible for the principle of induction in the induction machine. If the slip is 0, that means NR equal to NS. And that possibility won't exist for the induction machine, because induction machine's working principle depends upon the relative speed of the rotor conductors and the revolving field. So there is going to be lag between the rotor movement and the stator revolving field or air gap revolving field, and that relative motion is responsible for the development of the electromagnetic torque. We can see in the following discussion. Now when rotor is not rotating, let us say NR equals to 0. So when NR equals to 0, the rotor is at standstill, then the flux linkage will be highest to the rotor conductors, and therefore the induced EMF will be highest, that will be E2. So E2 is the induced EMF at NR is equal to 0, or you can say S is equal to 1, because at NR equals to 0, S equals to 1. Then at any other slip, at any other speed, the induced EMF will be S into E2, because that slip will decide relative motion between the rotor conductors and the revolving field. Okay, so by difference of this Ns minus Nr factor, which is slip, the induced EMF will be S into E2. This S into E2 equals R2 plus JSX2 into I2 for current I2 in the rotor circuit, and this is the rotor impedance. R2 is the rotor resistance and SX2 is the reactance at slip S. Because frequency induced in the rotor circuit F2 equals to S into F1. So that's why the S term will be applied to all frequency component when you talk about the rotor circuit. Therefore, I2 equals to SE2 by R2 plus JX2, which we can write E2 by R2 by S. We can divide by S both the sides, and we will get E2 by R2 by S plus JX2. And this is being represented by this diagram, circuit diagram. You can see this is the E2 as the induced EMF, and then there is a impedance of the rotor circuit, that is X2 and R2 by S, and the current flowing in the circuit is I2. There is a power factor in the circuit. We can find from this expression that theta 2 equals to tan inverse X2 by R2 by S, or we can find out the power factor in the rotor circuit equals to cos theta 2 R2S, you can say R2 by S, by R2 by S square plus X2 square and square root of this. This is the power factor in the rotor circuit. Now once we know this, then we can develop the phasor diagram as well as the equivalent circuit for the induction machine. There are stator currents which develops the MMF in the air gap and therefore the flux in the air gap. Now this flux induces the voltage in the two bindings called back EMF, in fact, which gives the rise of current in both the circuits. So in case of rotor circuit, let us say that this current I2 creates the flux phi 2. Each current is associated with some flux. So let us say the I2 in the rotor circuit creates the flux phi 2. Then we have this relationship applying the Faraday's law and Lentz's law. So Lentz's law is from the point of view of circuit. We say that induced EMF is given as L2 into di2 by dt. And Faraday's law says it is given as, in terms of the field, minus n2 number of turns into d phi 2 by dt, the rate of change of flux. So we equalize them. The negative sign shows the induced EMF opposes the initial cause, that is flux. So negative sign shows the nature of the output. That output opposes the effect opposes the cause. What is the effect here? The effect is the induced EMF. So negative sign shows that the induced EMF opposes the initial setup of flux, and therefore this implies that N2 into phi 2 equals to L2 into I2. So this is the relationship between phi 2 and I2. In fact, they are co-phasors and they are related through the constant N2 and L2. Now let us focus on the speed of the rotor and stator field. So there are two things, there are two fields in fact. When I say field, it is about the magnetic field. So a stator circuit has a field and rotor circuit has a field. And these fields are rotating at a certain speed. the speed of the revolving field, which we can also say the stator field, because the majority of the revolving field comes from the stator. So this stator field is basically called as revolving field, and this is having the speed of ns with respect to the stator body, and this value is given by, as you know, f1 by p by 2, supply frequency by pair of poles. Similarly, the speed of rotor field with respect to the rotor structure. Now there are two structures, the stator structure, the stator frame, and the rotor frame. So first I have to see the induced voltage and current in the rotor circuit will have its existence with the reference of rotor frame itself. So this field, which has come out of the induced voltage and current quantity, will be having the rotating field because of the rotor rotation as compared to the rotor structure, and that should be, of course, f2 by p by 2, similar to this, because this is the frequency is f1, this frequency is f2. So f2 by pair of poles, and f2 is nothing but s into f1. Okay, so s into f1 by p by 2, that becomes s into ns. This is the speed of rotor field with respect to the rotor structure. So what is the speed of rotor field with respect to the stator? Will be the speed of rotor with respect to rotor, the speed of rotor field with respect to rotor, plus the speed of rotor with respect to stator. So this is s into ns, just we found from here. So s into ns plus the speed of rotor with respect to stator is nr. So sns plus nr. And what is sns? From the definition of slip, s equals to ns minus nr by ns. So s into ns is ns minus nr. So this becomes ns minus nr. This is plus nr. The nr will go, and we have only term ns. So what do you see? That speed of rotor field with respect to stator is also ns, and the speed of the field with respect to stator is already ns. That means the two fields are stationary with respect to each other. Okay, this gives the information that the two fields are stationary with respect to each other, and hence they develop the electromagnetic torque. If you study the machine, you can find out that to develop the torque, electromagnetic torque, you need to have the two fields which are stationary with respect to each other. And then they develop torque. Since rotor is free to rotate, because of the torque, the rotor starts rotating. This is one way of explaining the principle of the induction machine. Now, with this concept or with this description, we can go further. We will now find out the power associated with the rotor circuit. The power of rotor circuit will be E2 into I2 into cos phi 2. As you know, the power in the circuit is given by Bi into cos phi. We can prove that this is real power. So E2 is already, we take the form of E2, and I2 is E2Y impedance. So you can see the circuit, this is the JX2, this is R2 by S, and this is the voltage E2, this is the current I2. The current I2 will be E2Y impedance. I am talking about the RMS magnitude. In the power, we take only RMS magnitude. So this becomes E2 into E2 by R2 by S squared plus X2 squared into cos phi 2 is R2 by S divided by R2 by S squared and plus X2 square and square root. So square root 2 times becomes square here. So this becomes R2 by S square plus X2 square, and in the numerator we get E2 square into R2 by S, which can be written as E2 by R2 by S square and plus X2 square root and the whole square. So this is nothing but I2 square. Thus the expression for the power in the rotor circuit becomes Pg equals to I2 square into R2 by S, where S is the slip. By the way, what is the term I2 square R2? I2 square R2 is the rotor copper losses. YS becomes the air gap power. This is also called by a specific name air gap power. So the G of the air gap is used as the subscript to note this gap power or air gap power. Okay, and this power is the real power which is transferred from stator to the rotor through the air gap, and its value is I2 square into R2 by S. Now this air gap power, which is the input power to the rotor, which is the transferred power from the stator to the rotor, has two parts. Number one is the rotor mechanical power. Okay, the rotor mechanical power which is converted into mechanical energy of the rotor, and the other part is the rotor ohmic losses plus rotor core losses. So basically rotor electrical losses, you can say, because rotor has two parts of the structure. Number one is the electrical circuit, another is the mechanical system. So electrical system and mechanical system both are being involved with the rotor design. There are electrical quantities and the rotation is this, there are mechanical quantities. So electrical rotor losses plus rotor mechanical losses makes this air gap power. The core losses are fixed losses. So we are trying to separate these core losses. We will consider them later on and will ignore here right now. The rotor mechanical power therefore must be equal to I2 square R2 into 1 minus S by S, because the sum of these two power equals to I2 square R2 by S, this power. Okay, this is only possible when this term is 1 minus S by S. So as we know that I2 square R2 by S equals to Pg, therefore this becomes 1 minus S into Pg plus S into Pg, because I2 square R2 by S is Pg. So this implies that this term is nothing but S into Pg, and this term is nothing but 1 minus S into Pg. Together they make Pg. Now this power, this term 1 minus S into Pg is referred as rotor electromechanical power, PE, or you can say PEM. If you want to make it more meaningful, you can make it PEM, rotor electromechanical power plus rotor copper losses. Okay, or you can say PEM plus P ohmic losses, PEM plus P ohmic losses. And from this electromechanical power, the electromagnetic torque is developed, TE or TEM, given by PE or PEM by omega r. Omega r is the speed of the rotor, angular speed of the rotor. So this electromagnetic torque can be written as P by omega r. And what is PE? P is 1 minus S into PG. So this is 1 minus S into PG divided by omega r. Omega r is 1 minus S into omega S. You can prove that by using the slip definition, because slip is Ns minus Nr by S. Therefore S into Ns is Ns minus Nr, and therefore Nr is nothing but 1 minus S into Ns, and therefore omega r is nothing but omega S or into 1 minus S. So using this term, these two terms will go away. We have only Pg by omega S. Therefore we can write the electromagnetic torque as Pe by omega r equals to Pg by omega S equals to I2 square R2 S, I2 square R2 by S divided by omega S. All these are equivalent terms. So now we have developed the expression for power and its main component, and also the expression for electromagnetic torque TEM. Now there are some more components of these powers. We want to understand what is the output shaft power. So for finding the shaft power, we have to find the mechanical losses as well. Now from this PE, which we just found, this PE, so from this PE we subtract the fixed losses, which are consisting of the core losses and the frictional windage losses, the mechanical losses. So we have coupled the core losses here, which are kind of a fixed losses. So core losses plus friction windage losses are subtracted from the electromagnetic power or electromechanical power, and then we find the shaft power PSH. And we know what is PE. PE is PG, the air gap power minus variable losses, that is ohmic losses. So basically we have the shaft power equals to PG minus variable losses minus the fixed losses. And further we can go from P shaft power to the shaft torque. So we can see once more that P is given by Pg minus I2 square R2, the first term. Then Pm, the mechanical power, is given by Pe minus rotor core losses, and P shaft is given by Pm minus mechanical losses. Therefore we can write that this shaft power is given by Pg minus I2 square R2 minus rotor core losses minus mechanical losses. And this shaft power will give us the shaft, the torque on the shaft of the induction machine, that is TSH is given by PSH by omega r. That is a standard torque and power expression. So now we have an understanding of the various power components in the induction machine, in the rotor and the stator circuit. We have understood the concept of the revolving field and the induction process through which the voltage and current quantities are induced, and they develop the power and the torque in the system. Now let us try to look various expressions for voltage and currents and the phasor diagram. The whole process of induction machine can be expressed like this, that we have applied voltage. The applied voltage gives the flux in the magnetic core of the machine. That flux induces the voltage in the rotor circuit SE2, which gives the current I2, and I2 is given as the voltage by impedance of the rotor circuit. Then from I2, I1 dash is generated based on the MMF balance equation, which says that the total MMF of the machine will be constant, or the MMF on the rotor will be supplied from the MMF from the stator circuit. So based on that, we can write the expression either like this, that N2 dash I2 plus N1 I1 dash will be equal to 0. The net MMF in the gap equals to 0. Or you can say the N1 I1 dash is supplying all the N2 I2. So negative sign shows that it opposes the initial cause. So I2 leads to I1 dash, that is the equivalent current on the stator side, and its value is minus N2 dash by N1 dash into I2. What are N1 dash and N2 dash? The N1 dash and N2 dash are the effective turns of the stator and the rotor respectively. The effective basically means that windings are distributed. So if there are 100 turns, effectively there will be close to some other value less than 100 turns, because there are distribution, the space factor of the binding is over the space. So effective number of turns will be less than the actual number of turns. So once we know the I1 dash, then we add the no load component of the stator winding, I0. So I1 dash plus I0 makes the net current I1. The net I1 from the stator here is I1 dash plus I0. And then what is I0? I0 is called no load current. When motor or transformer does not carry any load, in that case there is a component of current that is flowing in the primary side or on the stator side. That current has component of core losses, I see here, and then I phi is called magnetizing component of current. This is not the correct way of writing. Actually, I phi is here. Please correct me if you sometimes feel that I am writing something different. This is called magnetizing component. Okay, this is called core loss component. The core loss component has two parts, if you remember from your previous studies. Number one is called as eddy current losses. And the second one is called as hysteresis losses. Alright, the purpose of I phi is to set up the magnetic flux in the core, and the purpose of the core loss component is to account for the core losses, which consists of the eddy current losses and the hysteresis losses. Now once we know I1, then we can write the expression for the applied voltage V1 equals to V1 dash plus I1 R1 plus JX1 I1. This is the drop of the binding resistance and the leakage reactance, and V1 dash is the equivalent term for the induced EMF, which is E1, but E1 will be seen as minus E1 as a voltage drop, okay, because we are looking from this stator side. So the sense of the stator side is different from the rotor side. That's why the term minus E1. You can see these details in this phasor diagram, that we have a B1 first. Okay, now B1 sets of flux phi here. This phi is inducing the voltage SE2 in the secondary rotor as well as E1 in the primary side, the stator side. Right now they are in the same direction, but E1 is seen as minus E1 as a voltage drop B1 dash. This E2 gives rise to the current I2. This is I2 here, and because of I2 there will be a resistive drop in the rotor circuit, R2 into I2 plus JX2 into I2, and the sum of R2 I2 plus JX2 I2 becomes S into E2. Now E1 is reflected back in terms of B1 dash minus E1, seen as a voltage drop, and this B1 will then be added to the resistive and the reactive drop by finding the current I1. So I1 is basically the sum of the phasor sum of I1 dash and I0. So this is I1 dash, and I1 dash has come from the I2 by minus N2 by N1 dash into I2. So I1 dash plus I0 here becomes I1, and this I1 into R1 plus I2 into I1 into R1 plus JX1 into I1 becomes the B1. So these relationships can also be seen from the phasor diagram. And based on that, we develop the equivalent circuit, which is shown here in the figure. As you can see, this is the rotor resistance R2 by S, and this is here JX2 dash. Now we have used the term prime. Remember, we have used the term R2 dash, X2 dash, E2 dash. So what are these quantities? I2 dash. These are the referred quantities to the stator side. The prime superscript denotes the quantities of the rotor are referred to the stator side, and the relationship between the prime quantities and the original quantities is given here. For impedance, it is given by N1 dash by N2 dash by square. So R2 dash prime by S is given by N1 dash by N2 dash the whole square into R2 by S. Similarly, X2 dash is nothing but N1 dash by N2 dash square into X2. And we can write Z2 dash, which is combination of R2 dash and X2 dash. What is I1 dash? I1 dash is nothing but I2 dash, which is minus N2 dash by N1 I2. This comes from the MMF balance equation. And E2 dash, as you know, the number of turns N1 dash by N2 dash into E2. Okay. So this is the equivalent circuit for the induction machine or induction motor, you can say, for the time being. Now when we analyze the system, we normally makes approximation. When we analyze this circuit, we make some approximation. The one approximation is that RC, this component, is far greater than the X phi. That is, the RC is very high in value as compared to X phi, and therefore this branch is ignored, and hence the circuit become like this. So we have only Jx phi here, and this is the rotor resistance, this is reactance referred to the primary or stator, this is I2 dash, this is E2 dash here. Okay, and then there is a I1 current here and V1. So using this circuit we can simplify by looking into terminal A and B. Here we look inside these 2 points A and B and see what the circuit is seen from these 2 terminals. This is called Thevenin equivalent circuit. So I am looking a Thevenin equivalent circuit looking into terminals A and B. A Thevenin circuit can be achieved by finding the equivalent voltage and the impedance. The equivalent voltage is the voltage across point A and B, and the equivalent impedance across AV is the impedance across A and B when the voltage is shorted. So obviously this BE Thevenin voltage is given by JX phi divided by R1 plus JX 1 plus X phi into V1, because the voltage across this will be the voltage across this divided by this plus this into V1, and the impedance looking into AV will be the shunt combination of these two. So it will be R1 plus JX1 into JX phi plus divided by R1 plus JX1 plus X phi. We can write that this overall impedance can be written as RE plus JXE. And there is one more approximation here, that for all practical purposes the X1 plus X phi is far greater than R1. So we can neglect this R1 here because this value is quite high as compared to this value, so this is being ignored. The J and J is gone this side, and therefore it becomes B1 into X phi by X1 plus X phi. Therefore the Thevenin voltage becomes B1 into X phi by X1, where X1 is small x1 plus X phi. So we have changed the notation here, be careful about that. This is the capital X1, this is small x1, and similarly we can write the expression for the overall impedance ZE in terms of these parameters. It becomes R1 into X phi because J is gone, this is very high, so this is being ignored here, this J is gone with this J. So RE becomes R1 into X phi y X1 plus X phi, which is X1. So this is the RE and this is the XE. So now we have found the expressions for the equivalent circuit and also an approximate equivalent circuit in terms of the equivalent impedance and the equivalent voltage, which is called Thevenin equivalent. Now we can analyze this circuit in terms of the power. So in the next class we will study the expression for electromagnetic torque or electromechanical torque, and then we try to find out the speed torque characteristic, which are of prime concern to us as a microgrid systems. In microgrid system we are looking the application of the induction machine as an induction generator, and therefore we must know that what are the torque speed characteristics which will be used to generate the electrical power in a microgrid system. So based on these expressions that we will develop the torque speed relationship, although I have shown it here, but I will explain in the next class.